What's going on in commercial real estate? We have an unintentional podcast here. I had one of our developer friends, present to our company meeting on some of our agents that do commercial and development. And we went through conditions of the market. And I realized very quickly this would be a great opportunity for anyone that wants to know what's happening in the real estate market as it relates to commercial to benefit from. Now, we have bleeped out a couple of the municipalities that he said that were difficult to work with because he did not want that to come back to bite him. So enjoy this commercial real estate update. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. All right, I've got Joey and Travis Wilkes, and Travis is the husband of Joey and does some commercial projects and was a city manager of Round Rock.
Assistant Director to General Services.
Assistant Director of General Services. Okay, gotcha. And Joey, I have some questions. Why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, yeah. So I was just going to do a quick introduction, which we've already done. And then I was just going to ask Travis, could you tell us a little bit about his background in commercial real estate and go from there?
Yeah, Dalton, nice to meet you. My background really started in residential real estate, and acquired a condo, was so shocked that the bank gave me money, and then so bought a fourplex, and then kind of continued from there. About 7 years ago, decided to get much heavier involved in commercial real estate, and that kind of went through an acquisition that I was part of on an investment team that bought a large office complex, bought the raw land, and built an office complex in Palm Springs, California. And so through that, again, shocked that I was able to do that. And so about 8 years ago, I guess, really would be the time I started thinking about, okay, how do I take this to the next level in commercial? That led to me partnering with my current partner and the development of this company, Savvy Development, which really started with the purchase of 2 RV parks. And a year later, selling 30% of those RV parks for $1 million more than 100% of what we paid for it. So we still own 70%. We pocketed $1 million and decided, hey, let's keep doing this. We had bought some other land along the way, but that really kind of triggered okay, hey, we need an official start of this, and that developed Savvy. So
cool,
awesome.
And Savvy's in Round Rock.
Yeah, we're in Round Rock. Our large project right now is in Georgetown. It's a 24-acre project. We're not singularly focused on any geographic area. We would love to do stuff in Round Rock because, as Ryan mentioned, I've got some relationships there. I used to work for the city. Things could be easily built there through those relationships, but there's just not much commercial raw land for sale in Round Rock right now.
And so I have a question. So how does the permitting process work in in Round Rock versus like Austin? I mean, Austin is notoriously difficult to deal with. What about?
Yeah, so Round Rock's planning director has a culture of get it done, solve problems. And literally that's their mission statement. Everyone knows it. Whereas Austin, Georgetown, to an extent, Cedar Park, they're stuck in the weeds on, hey, why will this not work? What's the water situation? What's the neighborhood think? All those things. And so much easier in Round Rock. There is a defined process. I'll put it that way. In Round Rock, I can go into a situation and I can know on day one if my property is going to meet all the requirements, versus in Austin, it's much more political, because they're gonna involve the community in making that decision versus does this meet the requirements?
Okay.
And of course, the community gets kind of thrown out if the property is already zoned properly. Which, Joey, one of your questions was, what do we look for? Zoning is going to be the first thing. If the property is not zoned correctly, we put a year on that process, and it costs anywhere from $50,000 to $120,000 to get from not zoned properly to zoned properly if it can even happen. But you tip about 6 months into the process, you would know your chances are good or bad.
And, I haven't talked extensively with Chris Affinito. I know his process when a property is not zoned properly for what he is looking to do with it. What he does is he looks at like the overlays of the neighboring properties. And then he'll say, okay, well, if these 2 or 3 neighboring properties have gotten a variance to change the zoning, then that's most likely means that I will get the variance as well. Do you kind of go through the same thing?
Yeah, when we're in those communities that are going to be political, yeah, you've got to build your case. And so you're literally playing detective and going and searching all these other properties to go, hey, what did they do? You're looking at council meeting minutes, you're reviewing those minutes, you're seeing which council members disagreed versus agreed. Are they still in place? Who do you need to go reach out to? There's lobbying involved. There's proactively reaching out to neighborhoods that you know are going to be an obstacle. Versus again in Round Rock, it's a meeting with the city. So totally different, side of the coin.
Okay. And are the zoning, like, in Austin, and I feel a little ignorant for not even knowing this, but like, do you have the same designations for property types in Round Rock and as you do in Austin, like SF3?
Yeah, they're all pretty similar. You've got your industrial, your multifamily, your residential, and your commercial. And then they'll kind of drill down into the details. Typically, the larger the municipality, the more of those breakouts they'll have. Like if you were to go build something in Florence, Texas, they've probably got residential and commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And if it fits in one of those, then you're building it.
Yeah. And if it's not, then you look for the chances of getting a variance, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Gotcha. I've got a question in terms of the different places, I guess. So out here in Los Angeles, there's a website, it's called ZMOS, and it covers most of LA with the exception of maybe Culver City, Santa Monica, and West Hollywood. And ZMOS really lays out the zoning laws and regulations. So majority of the developers that I work with, if it's not on ZMOS or if it's outside of that map, it has to just be an absolute home run for them to even look at it. Some cities are easier than others. So I guess my question is there something similar to that within Austin? Are they all completely different, or do they somewhat run together?
There are groups that are similar. And so it really depends on the culture of the city. Are they pro-development or not? And so if you've got those groups like Austin that are not pro-development, you're up for a battle versus the cities that, hey, we understand that everything that we have is because the developer came and built it one day. Then those cities typically pro-development, and you're not going to have many problems. There's not I forget what you just called it, but that type of application doesn't exist. Typically, you're going to an engineer to help decipher the information if you want to drill down into the details. But really, that's my job as a developer, should know so if my partner says, hey, we're looking at this piece of property, run due diligence on it. I should be able to tell them, hey, what's the zoning? What are we going to be able to build there? Does that meet the market demand? I'm going to go through the higher level stuff. And then if it meets all those criteria, then I'm going to go hire an engineer to go, okay, hey, tell me exactly what I can do. I know I can generally do this. Tell me exactly what it can be.
Makes sense. Because yeah, if it's on that site for me, if I find it, I can send the email to whatever client I think best fits it with obviously the general information. And also you can build 16 units here plus 2 ADUs. It's so easy to tell. And then Ryan had introduced me to Chris, and I met with him once, and he somewhat broke it down as well, but I'm just surface level on the Texas rules.
Yeah, Ryan, I've read several articles about Chris and what he's doing. You've got to introduce him to me someday.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you got to check out some of the I did 2 podcasts with him. Well, one podcast, one like training, and it's really good as far as breaking down the different layers of how to look for property. And Dalton, I think you saw that as well. and thought that was pretty helpful, especially the one he presented to our group. Dalton, what are your people there in LA, are they starting to look over here more?
Yes and no. Most of the guys that I'm working with, that I'm closest with at least, they're doing anywhere, but honestly, the hottest thing out here is these double duplexes, 4 to 8 units, maybe 10. So I'm doing a lot of those. That being said, we have a couple guys that are institutional that they're looking for 200 to 500 units. And those guys, they're nationwide. So they're looking everywhere for sure. Some of them are even based out of Texas. Honestly, my kind of more people I'm close with, they're looking for already developed units, 100 units and up, to maybe with some vacancies to add value to.
Yeah.
So I don't know, kind of a yes and no question. There's several layers to that.
And Travis, are you doing, so like what you're doing right now is you're taking pieces of land and you're subdividing them, and or you're basically you're doing the entitlement, right? And then selling it after that, correct?
We're doing the entitlement and all the infrastructure. And so for the project in Georgetown, we're building all the roads, we're building all the stormwater, we're building all the utilities, working with the electric provider to bring electrical in. And so they're going to be shovel ready lots. Now, our goal is still that we'll probably develop some of those. It really just depends, we've got them for sale. If we get an offer that we can't say no to, then we're going to take the money.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, then we'll be building vertical on those sites as well.
Got you. And so you're building, I know you said this, but it's 24 acres, right? Or 24 lots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
24 acres. Yeah.
What is that what's the potential for that? Like homes, townhomes?
No, it's all commercial. So we've sold 9 of those acres to a developer who's doing 200 plus apartment unit. We're under contract for a small site for Culver's, and then Joey's helping us with several other folks that we're talking to right now. But nobody's pulling the trigger right now. The road right now is still dirt. I think as soon as the curbs and pavement starts to go in and people can see that it's real, we'll start getting a lot more activity. We're also sending some ads out in some publications. Should be out in the mail this week. And so Wilco Business Review, we've got an ad in there. And so I think once that happens, there'll start being a little bit more activity, and then we'll know, okay, hey, are we going to end up with one site left that's 5 acres? Or are we going to end up with, more than that? Or does it look like all sites are spoken for? So we're going to do whatever the opportunity presents.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the temperature of the market right now in this area for commercial?
It's non-existent. And so back to what Dalton was saying, the reason those folks are looking for something that's already developed is because with interest rates, you can't go take 1.5 to 2 years to develop something and pay that carry cost and that interest rate and not have income. And so what a lot of folks that we're talking to are doing is they found folks that it's time for them to refi. Well, if they're up and they base their model that, and this goes especially for institutional investors, they've based their model that they've sold the product on a certain return. Well, if they refi and their rate goes from 3% to 8%, then they're not going to hit those returns. And so they're literally forced to sell. Otherwise, their books look really bad. And so that's what you've got a lot of right now. Things are turning hands because of that.
Okay, so
you're dealing with people who have either their high net worth individuals, their family offices, or it's institutional money that's, probably not going out and borrowing stuff.
So you're saying that they're fire selling because they need to get dump that bad debt?
It's not fire sales yet. They're good deals. You're able to find deals. The fire sales are coming though, unless the economy starts to change in the next 16 months. You're going to see some larger apartment complexes that are selling. They'll be what you're hearing about in the office market. I mean, I just talked to a guy in Houston. He bought the Baker Hughes complex for $5 a square foot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 90% off, what it probably was 3 years ago.
Which is, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, at the same time you can get out there and get deals, but unless you're paying cash, those deals aren't that great.
They're not, because he's not going to put anybody in that office complex.
Mhm.
He's going to sit on it for probably 2 years
Yeah.
as he contemplates 3 or 4 different options on what he can do with it. And then when the economy is different, he'll go and enact one of those options.
So Dalton, what are you seeing as far as that is like, are you kind of seeing this in LA in that area? Are you seeing the same type of thing where
Yep.
people are worried about their interest rates?
Very, very similar. We actually, my team and I, we were just in escrow on this 500 unit development on the water in Long Beach. I think we got into escrow on that last June, maybe last June or July or something. But either way, last month they had already spent, I think, over $500,000 in due diligence, everything. But because the market is so unbelievably different, they had to walk. So they pulled out of that one. But yeah, same thing. I'm finding so many deals right now on a variety of things that my buyers look at and they're like, well, if this was a year ago, I would have overpaid for it. But right now we can't get anywhere close to what they're asking. And I think that's the thing. We're just now, maybe in the last month, starting to see some of these, I guess, development sites start to move, but the sellers aren't quite desperate enough yet, majority of them at least. So we're still pretty slow out here, but we see some movement kind of starting to go a little bit. So we'll see kind of, I guess, what the next month holds.
So I'm going to ask both of you guys a question that and my perspective is from, that of a residential, right? Where if you look at the last 40 years of mortgage rates, aside from a 10-year period, the almost exclusively the interest rates were 6% or and above. Okay. Well, right now you have, what is it, like 6.5 to 7.25. In my mind, that seems like, okay. And here's the comparison, right? Is that last year when interest rates jumped up in June or July, whatever it was, there was sticker shock from double the price of a loan. Well, this year, June to December, we're seeing more of a normalcy in the market. Is that not? I mean, so let's say the interest rates, and what I've heard is in what I've been quoted from somebody that I quoted from, is like the 5.5 rate is that's where things start to make sense, because we're not going to get lower than 5 probably. So where's that threshold there? And like with commercial, and is there going to be more of a seasoning of your tolerance of investor tolerance?
I'll let you go first, Dalton.
I mean, I was going to say, it seems like you've probably got some more experience in the waves of the market than I do, but I would hope so.
Yeah.
Is kind of my answer. Like I said, a lot of my clients the buyers aren't desperate enough and the sellers aren't desperate enough. So these sellers aren't willing to come down, but the buyers aren't willing to come up. Yet they're also getting low on projects. I've got a lot of guys that are finishing up some of these, 10-unit buildings that they've had under construction, and they don't have anything else in the pipeline. So they want to make sure they get something, and there's going to have to be an adjustment made. Everybody's waiting to find that great deal, even though there's a lot of good deals. And so it's going to be getting creative, I guess. I have several going right now where seller financing is available. A lot of these people that have money and don't need the cash up front are willing to offer that. We actually just found out I've got a huge land listing right now that is so complex. There's so many things wrong with it. It's overpriced. I mean, everything is a nightmare, and our guy's not willing to budge in price, but he's willing to finance over 50% of the deal at a pretty good interest rate. So that's going to help justify the asking price. Will it get the deal done? I'm not sure yet, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that. So for the residential market, as you know, Ryan, it's much more emotional based. if someone wanted a home a year ago and got scared, that pent up desire of them still wanting a home is now starting to build to a point to where they're going, okay, hey, this is the new normal. We're going to go do something. It doesn't happen so quickly on the investment side, because the models are built a certain way. So the financial models are built in a way that the banks are used to, the investors are used to, your LPs are used to, your GPs are used to. And so that's going to change slowly over time, because there's going to be a compression in profits that are just going to have to be accepted at some point. And so to Dalton's point, what you also have right now is you've got these funds. And so if I went out and raised $100 million 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I had a target to acquire X amount of properties with an X amount of return or whatever, I've got to go spend that money. And so I've got to go buy something. What am I going to go buy? So they've got these teams that are frantically looking for the best deal. And so, and they're going to have to spread that target risk over, okay, hey, I bought 3 deals, a year ago that were really bad. Now they looked good at the time, but now they're really bad. Okay, so now I need to find something that's going to counterbalance that.
Wow, this is an amazing conversation, because and you guys are both kind of saying the same thing. So if you look at it from both angles, right, which you have some buyers, right, that are going to be desperate because they need to get out of one project into another. You have institutional buyers, you've got people that are running funds that need to invest that money. And then you might have on the other end, or you do have on the other end, are sellers that are getting desperate. So you could almost make the case that unless interest rates, jump up another 1.25, that these two will meet in the middle very soon.
Yeah, and soon's the relative question, right? Is that a month from now? Is that 6 months from now? Is that 12 months from now? It's just gonna depend. And I wish I had the crystal ball that told us when it was.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Well, I'm gonna put a little clap in here, guys. As we're going along here, and I hope if you guys are interested in this, as I was going along and doing this, I was like, this is a great fucking podcast. And I'd be happy to let you listen to it. Make sure you didn't divulge anything you wouldn't want to, but I would love to put this on a podcast.
Yeah, I have no issue with that.
Blank out any city names that I said when I spoke highly or negatively.
Really?
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. Right.
Well, I had some
Other than that, though,
questions.
it's all good.
I have just a couple of questions that, for our group will probably help as we get more into commercial real estate. What are the things that we need to kind of look out for? And one of those was, I was talking to Travis yesterday, what makes the deal different from commercial to residential? And for me, working for Travis and Ken, it was just tons of questions during the due diligence period. And what am I looking for? What are the questions I need to be asking? Because I don't think if you're a residential realtor, you don't know what to go ask for if you're working with a client for the first time who is looking for a piece of land to put a commercial property on there. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing during that due diligence period? How long is it? What are we looking for? And I know it's different depending on what you're doing with the lot, but can you talk a little bit?
It really starts with the seller. If the seller put everything together the right way and made it easy for the buyer to buy, I will pay much more for that piece of property because I don't have to spend a year working on it. So if they've already done that stuff and let's say it costs them the $120,000 that I mentioned, I'd pay $220 for it because I can have it today.
Mm-hmm.
But all those things are, flood zoning. In Central Texas, you've got TCEQ. So do I have to do water quality and detention on my site? What does that look like? Impervious cover, ingress, egress, the fire marshal, what do they require out there? For this type of project, what do they consider the needs are? Fire flow. So so many residential agents say, hey, you can buy this 50 acres. It's a great site for an RV park. It's got a 1-inch water line coming to it. I can't do anything with that. I can put 2 RVs out there. 100 RVs requires a 6-inch water line that I've got to go get from 2 miles away. And it's going to cost me a couple $100,000 to go do that. But that's just my drinking water. Then I've got my fire flow. So it's different for each piece of property, depending on geographically what overlays it may be in. So it does get complicated. And the more that, just like residential real estate, the more you do it, the more familiar you're going to get with the different requirements that people are looking for. But at the end of the day, it comes down to profit. A home decision is based on emotion, school choice, all those other things, where the sole reason that I'm going to buy or sell a property is the profit that's involved. It doesn't need to be sexy. I don't need to tell my friends about it and be excited about it. It needs to make money. That's it.
What else you got, Joey?
I think that's really, that covers that. Is there anything else that I don't know, any other questions? I was hoping more people would be on the group so we can have questions from more people that are here.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that, Joey, is knowing who's in charge of that piece of property. And so all those entities that I mentioned, so municipality, county, ETJ, TCQ, LCRA, who has authority on that piece of property? So who do I have to go to and lobby for my project?
Yeah. And I know that can take quite some time. And so your due diligence periods are also going to be a lot longer than what an option period is.
Yeah. And typically they're going to be free. Like, I'm not going to pay you to go out and spend money on your property.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to walk away at any point and not owe you a dime. And the sellers know that in this market. They understand that, hey, my property isn't ideal for what I want to do, for what they want to sell it for. So they know they're going to walk that path with me. And I would say the fastest we would ever do a deal, and it's the one you're doing with us right now, Joey, the Theon Ranch, is probably 3 months, is the quickest we're going to ever, and that's lightning fast. But the longest is going to be over a year. And that's just the nature of the beast.
This listing that I was just talking about, just to touch on that, how long things can take. I won't even go through all the details, but it's historical, so you can't tear down what's there. It's in a specific plan that limits you. There's so many things wrong. But we just got an offer that's a little bit low in price, but still extremely reasonable. But they have a 10-day DD period and a 21-day close. And so we are trying to tell the buyer right now, listen, we know this is not the price that you want, but we are not going to get an offer.
The seller.
We're telling the seller, sorry, that you're not going to get another offer that's not going to have a minimum of 3 months, probably 6 to 8 of something to go wrong. The fact that they have 10 days to remove the contingencies, and we're listed at 12 million. It's not a small property. It's a large chunk of change they're putting down. So, it's those long escrow periods. Like I said, we just fell out of the other one because of how much the market changed. So we are trying to push him to take the quicker terms, even though he's not a seller that needs the money quick. It's more just the risk factor of a lot less can go wrong in 10 days than 10 months.
Yeah.
And I know that there are, you have your extension periods too, which always blows my mind, because you're like, oh, we can extend. We have 2 options to extend in this contract. So for a realtor to get paid, even that is extended out even further than residential. So you can't expect to get paid in 45 to 60 days. You're not going to get paid possibly for 6 months to a year, depending on what the contract terms are. So
I do have an anecdotal story about a residential listing that one of our agents was on, Laura, and it was it's in Steiner Ranch. It's 4,300 square feet. The seller is a builder, developer, or whatever. Okay, and so he added on 1,500 square feet, but he did not get it permitted. Okay, and Steiner Ranch is in the ETJ. apparently. And when through the negotiations, the agent on it, the buyer's agent, who's been an agent forever, was like, calls me. He's like, you got to get this girl under control. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's new, blah, blah, blah. Because, and I noticed, is like, wait a second. He sent me the listing. He's like, this isn't permitted. And he says, yeah, well, no, what he tells me is like, oh, and the remodel, he did it without the city giving good tax advantage to your buyer. I'm like, well, that's not a tax advantage. That's a liability, right? and then he says, well, you're an ETJ. You don't need permits. I'm like, wait a second. Okay. And then I had to look at that, so I went and like, when Laura called the city, like, yeah, you need a permit on it.
Yeah.
So
and that's one other thing that I'll say too is the legislator in Texas controls a lot of property rights, and there was just 4 significant bills that were passed, and so this is kind of another layer that I wouldn't expect the best commercial agents to know all the legislative issues that are going on, but to have a good understanding of, hey, what's at the state capitol right now that could significantly change what we're doing. And it goes to what you just said. One of the bills was opt out of ETJ. And so if I own a property, which one of my RV parks, well, 2 of them are in the ETJ, we are about to submit for a remodel on one of those RV parks. We're going to send a letter to the city that requests to opt out of the ETJ. As soon as I put that letter in the mail, I'm out of the ETJ. They cannot refuse it. And they do not have to accept my letter for it. There's no contingency on that. And so that was a bill that Abbott passed because municipalities have gotten, their overreach has gotten so far that he wanted to take some of that back and kind of slap their hand and say, hey guys, y'all need to figure this out. You're doing too much. And so I'm going to opt out of that. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to cut down every tree that I want to cut down and not pay a single dime. I just paid $79,000 for trees that I cut down that were required on a road that I built for the city, that I have to give them the land. So I bought the land, didn't cost the city anything. I'm giving them the land. I'm building the road. It's at $2.3 million to build the road. I cut down the trees. I had to pay them $79,000 to cut down the trees on land that I don't even own. And I bought to give to them.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, some of the bills that just passed are going to be really good for property owner rights, especially for developers when they buy those properties. The other one that was really good is they passed. They're limiting the counties to 30 days to approve plats.
Wow.
So the county has to approve a plat within 30 days. Well, I say county. Arguably, I met with 2 of the people who wrote the legislation. Arguably, it's written so that any authority has 30 days to approve a plat. But specifically, it does call out counties. And so they have 30 days. If you submit the information incorrectly, they can respond within that 30 days and say, hey, you submitted incorrectly, but they have to give you bullet points, specific things that you need to correct. And if you correct those things and send it back in, they have to approve it again within 30 days.
That's awesome.
Right now, it's taken a year sometimes in Williamson.
So were those bills passed and not in effect until January?
September 1st.
September 1st.
They'll be in effect. So I'm not opting out of the ETJ on my RV park until September 1st.
Nice. Awesome. Well, cool guys. I really appreciate it. I think it's super helpful and it will be required listening for the people in the mastermind. So I think this was great. Travis, thank you so much. Joe,
yeah, happy to help.
Get in there. And Dalton, thanks for your contribution. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I guess if for Joey and Travis, I got my Texas license recently. I'm trying to get more involved down there because my family, my future life is back home. So the more I can learn while I'm still out here before I get there, it's the easier it's going to make the transition. So I appreciate the time and all the info.
Yeah, feel free to keep in touch. Joey will get you my info.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Bye.